Welcome to the Wellness Warehouse podcast with your host, Coach Teeny. That's me. Today, I have an incredibly special guest with me, my very loving and supportive husband, Kyle. Some of you know him as the taco guy, and some of you know him as the fixer. I know him as my place of security and unconditional love. He is the place my heart calls home and the one I know I can always count on. Welcome, Kyle.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for taking the time to be part of my crazy new journey. You always support me in my harebrained crazy adventures. I just love you so much.
Oh, and I love you more.
Aw. Today we're going to be discussing relationships and what components work together to create a healthy and mutually respected relationship. From compromise to setting healthy boundaries to finding lasting love, security, and support from your partner or friend. What do you desire in a relationship? How do you find it? What elements do you think make a great relationship? I will try my best to unpack these 5 important elements for you in hopes they will add value and insight to your current and possibly past relationships. Let's begin by unpacking compromise. 2 people, 1 goal, pretty simple. So, how do we compromise in our relationships? This is the question. Compromise is coming together and finding a solution agreeable to both parties. No two people are the same. At some point in the relationship, you and your partner or friend are going to have a different approach, opinion, idea, or wish. But you will remain 2 individuals seeking a common goal, and you must work together to achieve it. Learning to identify what means the most to you and what might be a deal breaker in the relationship is key. This particular skill can come in pretty handy in a variety of situations. For instance, something as small as where to go for dinner to planning a 10-day trip backpacking across a foreign country. Sometimes it's letting the other party have the spotlight or being the first one to say, "I'm sorry." Some people have said that successful compromise is doing these things without arguing, hurting feelings, or pushing the other away. Well, I agree. You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or push anyone away, but I'm not sure I agree with the arguing part. Let's just say that communication at any level is literally the only thing that will make a relationship successful. Sometimes a good argument can lead to a great breakthrough. Now, I'm not talking about that knockdown, drag out, bitter fight, but a disagreement that opens up pathways to feelings and emotions that need attention. Nevertheless, compromise should always involve assessing your priorities and focusing on what you value most. So get your pen and pencil out and make a list or take some notes. Kyle, again, thanks for being here. Really appreciate that. I want to ask you a question. Can you think of a time that we needed to compromise? I know there's many, but just pick one.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess a couple years back, maybe when we were doing some tacos behind the stage during the concert, setting up tacos, definitely a rough go.
Oh, yes. I like things a particular way, all feng shui, looking all professionally catered, every corner tucked, every container filled to the top. Hey, cheese over here, meat here, fold the napkins like this. I know I can be a bear to work with at times, but it's only because I want the best for my clients and friends. You know that.
Most definitely. I think the problem was for me is I'm more of a major big picture guy, and you're super detailed,
Yeah.
and I get anxious when the big blocks don't get set. So I think that the compromise that we had after a discussion that we both had the same goal of getting it done and complete for what the client's needs were.
Yeah. Yep. But there was some compromise there. And I appreciated that you were able to give me that feedback too. And I know at times, I mean, I may have raised my voice or we may have had a little disagreement. It was never anything that was obviously because we're in a situation where we can't really express too much emotion. You know, you can't have like a big, huge argument backstage when you're doing something for a high profile client. So anyways, that being said, no, for real. And, you know, I think I needed to realize that people weren't going to know where things were going to be placed, like my vision. They weren't going to know, like, oh, the taco meat was supposed to be over there. This taco bar looks weird. Um, that's just me, and that's all my creative control. And I use the word control because, like, not that I wanted to control the situation, but like when you're creative, you have a creative mind. I know that you do, and our children and many of our friends and family are very creative. But there's just this sense of like this vision that you get of how you want something to look. And so you do kind of just run with that creative control. But the compromise that we made that day, because we used your different approach, and it actually ended up working out better in the end. I wanted to remind you too, there was this one time, I believe it was for the band Diration, yeah, Sideways Rain.
Oh, geez.
Like, how do you, and here we are backstage trying to set up tacos, and literally the only time it rained that hard was when we were trying to get everything together.
Right.
And we really had to work together as a team, and it took some compromise. I'm talking like my boots were full of water,
Yes.
soggy boots, but we didn't want soggy food. The
Right.
last thing we wanted hot food, and I think we had like really awesome fish tacos, and it was just a time that you and I had to work together, and I think you in a leadership role at that point was really good for me. So I'm almost grateful for the chance, the opportunity that we had to have a little, I don't know, tiff or disagreement a couple years back about setting up tacos and how it was supposed to be, because your visions in the end actually made things better. So I think now that we just work with the way that you proposed it. But you know, um, going back to those lists or notes that you guys may have been taking down, I want to let Kyle give you guys some advice, and Kyle, help our listeners make a list of things that they can try when they're in conflict or disagreement with their partner or in their friendship with another. Um, I don't know if you'd be willing to kind of share some of that information.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, I think, is being willing to see the other person's point of view.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to not be always right. I'm definitely pretty strong-headed when it comes to that suit. I like to be right on facts, and I like to argue my point. But I think to have a successful relationship, I think that you really need to at least validate the other person, listen to their point of view, and seeing how they're seeing things versus just arguing your point and just getting your point through.
Sure, because that's more of having an opinion than having an idea. And when you're dead set on having an opinion, then you're not leaving space for the other person to have an opinion, to have an idea. It's, my way or the highway. So
Yeah.
you're right. Being willing to be able to see someone else's point of view and validate their, I mean, you don't have to agree with them,
Right.
but we all have feelings. You can't say your feelings aren't valid. So validating them, that word, like when you said that, that just kind of hit with me. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and I think that's great. I think that's a great thing for our listeners that they can look forward to, that they can write down, take a note to, try it, in one of their relationships. Just trying to be aware of seeing the other point of view. I know I can add to that too, having ideas rather than opinions. I kind of just mentioned that, but instead of being so dead set on an opinion, and have an idea and leave it open. Maybe you'll be persuaded by someone or something, maybe a conversation that we'll have, I don't like tomatoes, and then, or like, you don't like ketchup. That's a good one. You don't like ketchup, but you like tomatoes, right?
Right.
So maybe someday I can persuade you to like ketchup in a different way, by just having an open mind, keeping an open mind, having ideas rather than opinions. I think you have more that you want to add.
I think that it's kind of important to respect each other's feelings, especially when you guys are in the heat of the moment, not to cut each other down, and
Yeah.
again, being respectful of each other's ideas versus just slinging opinions out and going for the low blows, and
Because that's so easy to do.
Yes.
It's so easy, like, well, no, I'm right, and this is the way it is, and I want, or just being like, oh yeah, like that one time that you did this, or,
right.
It is just so easy to kind of disrespect each other. And especially when you're in the heat of the moment, you're doing, your body's in that emotional reaction as opposed to that thoughtful response.
Yeah,
So sometimes
absolutely.
it's good to kind of bite your tongue for a moment, and just say, you know what, I want to respect their feelings. Like, I don't agree with you. However, I'm willing to entertain what you have to say. I know I can add to that too by saying always fight fair. One thing that we had talked about years ago, which we are still, I mean, we're still a work in progress. I think everybody is.
Right.
But trying not to say you never or you always. We're really, I don't think we're pretty good at the you never part, but you always is a very difficult one in any relationship, in any household. Oh, you always do this, or you always say you're going to do that. Well, no one always does anything. And if they did, I don't know that the relationship would ever work.
Right.
So it's not never, it's not always, it's you usually or you most of the time. So just remember to respect each other's feelings, fight fair, have ideas rather than opinions, and be willing to see the other person's point of view. I'm going to leave you with these thoughts and a quick quote from the great Oprah Winfrey. Compromising doesn't mean that you're wrong and someone is right. It only means that you value your relationship more than your ego.
That's good.
And then Oprah Winfrey's quote is, you should not be the one doing all the bending. Compromise is a two-way street. Oprah Winfrey. Exactly right. It is a two-way street. So just remember, it's not all about you and it's not all about them. This is a partnership. This is a relationship that takes two. So next up, healthy boundaries. But first, I wanted to share with you a tidbit from an old podcast I hosted a few years ago. I went over setting and organizing priorities. And I think this is important to share with you after we just closed up the compromising, that we share how to set and organize priorities. Really knowing what matters most to you at your current point in life is the key to setting priorities. Since priorities will change as you learn and grow, they will be your guide to forming and anchoring certain behaviors. You'll need to accept and understand the actions you take and the decisions you make will either help you achieve your goals or obstruct you and delay your forward progression. I formulated a 6-step process I hope you will find effective and easily applicable. I hope you will give it a try. So here is that 6-step process. Number 1, define what matters most to you. Make a list if that helps you visualize your priorities. Now I make lots of lists and you'll hear me say make a list or get a pen. Because typically I think if we have a journal or something, just even a scratch pad where we're writing down things that we want as goals or things that we want to practice or lists that we want to make, I just think it helps us be accountable. And there's this process that I learned, I think it was like in middle school, read, write, and review. So you're reading something, you're writing it down, and then you're reviewing it. It just helps it kind of stick in your mind. So when we journal, it's just something that we can go back and revisit too. So anyways, define what matters most to you. Make a list if that helps. Number 2, number your priorities in order of importance. Your list can begin with just breathing consistently, and that's okay. That can be your number 1 thing to do. This is your list, and you are defining what matters most to you right now. Number 3, decide what priorities you may need to compromise or sacrifice. There's that word compromise. Sometimes we realize we must sacrifice time or money for something that really has our heart. And sometimes we must say no to the things we enjoy so that we can meet our goals. Now, this doesn't mean you have to do it forever. It's a temporary modification, but a necessary one for achieving your success. Guys, let me remind you that everything in life is temporary. The good days, the bad days, the good seasons, the bad seasons, the challenges, it's all temporary. So when you're in the good moments, don't think about how quickly they're going to end. But when you're in the bad moments, remember, they are going to end. Number 4, set healthy boundaries. Don't give up too much or overcommit yourself because you can end up feeling overwhelmed. Learning to say no isn't easy, but it can help you along your journey. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Find the right balance. Remember that subtracting your priorities can be just as important as adding to them. Balance equals manageability. Number 6, find support. It's been proven in countless studies that we're more successful when we have a partner, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a coworker, parent, or coach. Find someone who believes in you and will support your choices and support you as you rebalance your priorities. Now, I really wanted to share this list with you and this old part of this podcast that I did on organizing and setting priorities because I think it goes right along with what we're talking about today, and I hope that you will find it valuable. Now, on to healthy boundaries. Topic 2, healthy boundaries. Creating healthy boundaries can be empowering. When you recognize the need to set and enforce personal limits, you protect yourself and your self esteem, your self worth, you maintain respect, and enjoy healthy relationships. Not setting or enforcing those boundaries can lead to emotional pain that cause dependency, depression, anxiety, and many stress induced physical illnesses. Healthy emotional boundaries come from believing that you are enough just the way you are. You can commit to letting go if you can commit to letting go, fixing others' problems, and needing to be needed, changing yourself to be liked, or depending on the approval of your partner or your friend, then you just might have a chance to free yourself from the codependency that comes with not setting standards for your relationship. Now, Kyle, I know I've been talking a lot here and I just appreciate you being here. So I'm going to ask you, Kyle, what are some things that our listeners can do to help them set healthy boundaries in their relationship?
Hmm. I think self care comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think too many times we, especially we are good friends, that we pour out of our cup to fill other people's cups, and I don't think if we take the time to fill our own cup, we're just going to wear ourselves out, and then we get frustrated, even though that we probably shouldn't with certain friends. So self care and both physically and mentally, I think is key not only to yourself but also to your relationships that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say thank you to you because you always let me take care of myself. You always ask me, what does Tara need? And sometimes I do forget to ask you, what does Kyle need? And I want to encourage you, just take this moment right now to say thank you, but also encourage you to make sure that you're making your self care a priority.
Mm.
What does Kyle need? How do you take care of yourself? Or, what do you need? Do you need a hot bath, an hour at the gym? Do you need me to give you accolades on the daily? I know that I need some of those things, and I know that you're always willing to give me the space I need to have those things or to support me and tell me how great I'm doing. And I really appreciate that.
Mm.
So, thank you.
Mm.
And thank you for bringing up the self care as a priority because I think that's really important. Um, what are some other things that our listeners can do to help them set those healthy boundaries in their relationships?
Mm, I think a lot of times we need to consider your present and your past. And what I mean by that is not only for yourself, but also your relationship. And are you repeating the same things? Are you running in circles versus actually growing? Is the relationship that you're in, is this person continually taking up your time and not taking any of the advice that you're actually giving them and actually just draining you? And so it's repeat. And I think sometimes that could cause maybe some angst within a relationship. So looking at your present and past, I think is definitely important to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. I mean, yeah, I'm asking questions like, am I making the same mistakes over and over? Or, what did I do in the past that didn't work? Am I repeating the same behaviors? Is the relationship reciprocal?
Mm.
Is there a healthy give and take between both parties? And I
Yeah.
think absolutely considering your past and present and learning from your mistakes is huge. So I think that that's something that we can take into account and analyze and say, hey, are we doing this? Are we staying true to ourselves and are we making the same mistakes? And how do we stop ourselves from making the same mistakes? And I think this is again goes back to like that journal piece where we're making lists where we can go back and say, you know what, I
Mm.
wrote that I was doing this and
That's
I'm
good.
still doing it. So really being accountable to try to stop those behaviors, try to respond differently. And I use the word respond because react is the last thing we want to do. We always want to respond. We always want to take a moment, take a break, whether that's a breath or 10 breaths or a day or a week or a month, to respond to somebody. That's really important because when we give ourselves just even that inch or that yard of time, we are able to put things into perspective rather than to respond or rather than just to react. And usually when that reaction comes, it's a very emotionally charged
Oh
reaction.
yeah,
So
definitely.
also, I can add to that too, like to tell the listeners, practice self-awareness.
Oh, that's good.
When we know how we feel, if we have some bit like of emotional intelligence, I feel like we can connect with ourselves and engage more confidently with others. And then also giving ourselves permission. This is huge.
Mm.
And I know, Kyle, I know that you'll agree with me. It's okay to say no,
Oh yeah, definitely. It's
but it's
hard.
hard.
It is.
It's just hard. I mean, let's just say that. It's just hard to say no,
Mm.
but I feel like our needs have to come first, like I'm speaking in general here, like your needs need to come first, not in an inconsiderate or gratuitous way, not selfishly, but you said it earlier, an empty cup can't fill another cup. I mean, if there's nothing in your cup, if you have nothing to give someone because you've overextended yourself, then, so you need to give yourself permission. You need to give yourself permission to say no and to set healthy boundaries. And that's what we're talking about right now, is setting healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries are just a sign of self-respect.
That's good. Yeah.
Things like guilt, fear, self-doubt, those can be huge traps. But maybe you feel that if you set or enforce boundaries that you're going to be snubbed or deemed selfish. And it's a possibility. I mean, it's sometimes when we set those healthy boundaries, they're not well received by others.
Right.
The people don't understand. But I think if we're thoughtful and and we can be on the other side of this. We can be, rather than the ones setting the healthy boundaries, we could be the ones that someone has set a healthy boundary with us.
Right.
And we have to be really open to say, I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way, and thank you for setting this healthy boundary, because now I know that, it just really improves relationships, I think, for both parties.
Definitely. Chance for growth for sure.
Absolutely. And, maybe your listeners don't feel like they even deserve to have boundaries in the first place. And if that's the case, then you definitely need to give yourself permission, because you should never feel like that. You are so important, and you absolutely are worthy and deserve to set healthy boundaries for yourself. Protect, and I'm not talking about building walls when you're protecting your heart. I'm talking about just setting healthy boundaries. Like, if there's someone that calls you all the time, you're their person that they call to dump on. And you know what I mean when I say dump. It's an emotional dump. They just call. Sometimes it's called venting, and they just call and they just want to dump all their problems on you. They don't say, "Hi, how are you doing? I have some really, personal information and I just need a shoulder." They just call and go, "Hi, guess what happened to me?" Blah, 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 blah. And you're like, "Oh God, help me." But we want to be as sensitive and as kind as possible. So we listen, and who knows where we're at emotionally on that day too. So
true.
sometimes saying, "I'm really sorry. I can tell that you need someone to talk to, but unfortunately, right now, I don't think that I can listen to what you have going on. I'm unable to." And that's a healthy boundary that we can set for ourselves by saying, "Hey, we just can't be that person." And hopefully that person will receive that and say, "I'm sorry, I should have asked, are you able to listen to me right now? Like, hey, and sometimes I'll get texts like, "Hey, are you free? I want to chat, oh, what's up?" And so I get kind of like a what's going on first, so I know what to expect. Like, yeah, I have 5 minutes or an hour, and, depending on what they say, like, I just broke up with my boyfriend, that's going to be a little bit longer of a conversation.
Right.
But, really, it's just really important. I don't know, I've beat this one to death, but give yourself permission. If you haven't done that, do it. It is okay to say no. Do not let people drain you from all of your happiness. And that's what will happen if you do not set that healthy boundary. And lastly, seek support. We weren't made to walk this earth alone. I value my personal time. I know you did, camping in the woods on your own, but when we're working through challenges, we almost always can bet that we will experience personal burnout over time.
True.
Just it. I just don't believe that any of us were ever meant to walk it alone. And being alone's great, and I have a friend right now who's on an amazing journey, and I know you're listening right now. But she's by herself and she's seeing the world, and it's so beautiful, and she's recording her travels, and that's so amazing. But I just want to remind our listeners that, you're not meant to walk this world alone. And sometimes you need to reach out. You need that support. You need to connect. It's okay to be alone for a little while, but you can't live like that forever.
Right. Just a seasons,
Just through seasons. Exactly. Thank you, Kyle. Walking through seasons, that's absolutely amazing. And that's just it. And this is a season where sometimes you do walk alone. Of course, we're never alone. For our listeners that are also Jesus followers, you are never alone. But, seek support. I value my personal time, I really do, but I enjoy being with you so much. And I enjoy being with my family and my friends. And Things like support groups, churches, counseling, coaching, good friends, all that kind of stuff can just make life more bearable,
Hmm.
even when it's really mundane or even in really agonizing times. We're just better together. So, yeah, and that pretty much wraps up all I had on healthy boundaries. Obviously, if you guys have any questions, you can always send me a message. Um, Catch me on Instagram. You can send me a direct message on Instagram at Coach Teeny. That's CoachTknee. Also on Facebook, again at Coach Teeny. Hit me up on YouTube. This episode will also be loaded up to the YouTube channel. Leave me comments. Leave me your thoughts. Helps me to gain more exposure on the show, and I also appreciate it, as your support means the world to me. So, moving on to topic 3, lasting love. How do we make love last? How do we create lasting relationships? By utilizing the last 2 topics we just unpacked. I mean, really, right? By setting healthy boundaries, by being open to compromise, by giving freely of ourselves, by remembering that we're worthy and equal to one another, asking for clarification when we need it, by combining all of the things that we have discussed here this morning. Let me leave you with these short quotes, and then we're just going to close this topic. And I know this has been less than a minute, so the quickest topic we've covered. But honestly, creating lasting love really is encompassed by everything that we've talked about here today, right? Would you agree, Kyle?
Absolutely,
Okay.
definitely.
So you make love last by utilizing things that we talked about today, by setting healthy boundaries, by being open to compromise, by giving freely of yourself. I'm going to leave you with these 2 quotes as to close this topic. True love stories have no ending, and the best thing to hold on to in life is each other.
That's good.
Topic 4, security. Feeling secure is a major accomplishment in any relationship, and one that takes time and effort by both parties. Trust is usually earned, but can be freely given. Why is trust important? How do we build trust? Trust literally is having blind faith in another person. To trust another means you rely on them and are comfortable confiding in them because they make you feel safe and secure. Trust is a building block to feeling secure in any relationship. This topic reminds me of a sermon I heard from my pastor not long ago about how when we lock our doors and windows at night and turn on our security cameras, how those things make us feel safe. They're supposed to be a natural deterrent for most criminals, but do they actually create safety? Or they just make us feel secure because of the likelihood that they will protect us? So, why is trust important? Well, without trust, you can't sustain your relationship for any amount of time. Lack of trust is one of the main reasons why relationships fall apart and dissolve. I can attest to that. I've been on both sides of that arrow. So we need to trust. We need to have healthy, lasting relationships. We need trust to have healthy, lasting relationships. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I cannot talk this morning. It's important to build and create memories with others, to engage in personal support, and much more. So, how do we build it? You have open communication. You admit your mistakes, you make friends or partners a priority. That's huge for me. You listen to him or her. Don't talk over them. That's just gross. Can I just say it's like a pet peeve of mine? I used to do it all the time, really. But it's actually made me a better listener since I've experienced how awful it feels when someone just railroads you in a conversation. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Definitely.
I'm sorry, but I just had to get that out there. It just, please, when you're listening to someone, be a good listener and let them finish their sentence. I know we're all eager like little puppies, and we just are just bouncing around and we just want to talk. And
Agreed, definitely. Remember this: God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you listen a lot more than you do talk.
absolutely. Thank you for adding that. And then I'm just going to move forward here. It's actually made me a better listener, and I've experienced how awful it feels when someone railroads me in a conversation. So be confident together and apart. Don't lose yourself in your partner and friend. That's a big one too. Wow. You're one of a kind. And that, my friend, that's a fact. You have so much to offer the world, so much to offer a friend, a loved one, a partner. Let that just resonate with you for a moment. In closing, security is the confidence and the trust that you build in the relationship and your personal guarantee to honor the other person, to be attentive to their needs, to listen, love, and respect them for who they are. Don't judge them, but support them in their journey. The road to success is often carved out with healthy amount of confidence and high self-esteem. But if you feel burdened by insecurities, you may have trouble getting anywhere. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. That's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that closes out our topic on security. Moving on to our last and final topic, support. Well, my friends, I think this one's been rolled up into the other topics quite well, but let me encourage you by leaving you with this. Support is crucial to our success in many things. When we were children, we needed our parents to hold our hands to cross busy streets. We needed teachers to teach us how to survive in the real world, and we need each other to learn and grow. It's through experience that we're taught lessons, those lessons that mold and shape us into who we become today, who we have become today. If you have a tribe of people that you can count on, you're so blessed. Coaches, mentors, counselors, pastors, they can all improve your ability to cope with life's stressors and help you recognize, define, and achieve your personal professional goals. Having a strong social network of family, friends, neighbors, coworkers that love and support your hopes and dreams is also a valuable asset. It's my wish for you today that you start your day knowing at least one person loves you, and that person is me. I think you're worthy, valued, loved, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Wellness Warehouse podcast. I appreciate you. Until next time.